terror of the void, the sleek obsidian hull drifted through the nebula like a predator stalking through cosmic fog. For 3 standard cycles, the vessel had been the nightmare of 7 different species across the Outer Rim territories. Its very appearance triggered primal fear responses in creatures that had evolved on worlds light-years apart, something about its angular design, the way it absorbed light rather than reflecting it, and the absolute silence with which it moved through space. Captain Vex Thari of the Zolonian Trade Consortium watched his sensor displays with growing dread as the black ship materialized from the stellar debris field ahead. His cargo freighter Prosperity's Edge was loaded with rare minerals from the Andorian mining colonies, a fortune that could set up his crew for life. But none of that mattered now. "All stop," Vex Thari whispered, his 4 arms trembling as they hovered over the control interfaces. Around him, his crew of mixed species, Zolonians, Cathara, and a single nervous Draconis, held their breath in species-specific terror responses. The Cathara's scales had shifted to deep purple, while the Draconis' tendrils writhed in barely, controlled panic. The black ship said nothing. It never did. There were no hails, no demands for surrender, no negotiations. It simply appeared, and ships would flee or be destroyed. The lucky ones got away with their lives but lost their cargo to mysterious tractor beams that left no trace of how the goods were extracted. The unlucky ones? Well, their ships were found later as perfectly clean debris fields, every organic trace scrubbed away. "Sir," his communications officer, a young Cathara named Silvranus, spoke with barely controlled terror. "Should we attempt to make contact?" "No," Vex Thari replied firmly. "Reverse engines, maximum burn. We run." But as the Prosperity's Edge began its desperate retreat, something unprecedented happened. The black ship's forward section began to glow with an eerie blue radiance, and for the first time in recorded encounters, it transmitted a signal. The message came through as a universal translation matrix, spoken in a voice that seemed to carry the weight of empty space itself. "Cargo vessel. You carry materials designated as Strategic Resource Classification 7. Transfer your holdings or face recycling protocols." Vex Thari's blood ran cold. Strategic Resource Classification 7, that was military-grade terminology from the ancient archives, language that hadn't been used since the Great Expansion Wars over a millennium ago. But this ship spoke as if those classifications still mattered, as if the old military protocols were still in effect. "Sir, our cargo manifest shows we're carrying trilithium crystals and quantum-stable rare earth elements," his cargo master reported, reading from a shaking tablet. "If those are classified as 7, then this ship thinks it has military authority to confiscate them," Vex Thari finished grimly. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a pirate vessel or some unknown alien threat. This was something that believed it was operating under military protocols from a dead civilization. As the black ship began to move closer, its hull seemed to ripple and shift, weapons ports opening like dark eyes across its surface. Vex Thari made a decision that would haunt him forever, or save his life. "All hands, prepare for emergency jump. Random vector, maximum distance. Sir, we haven't calculated. Now!" The Prosperity's Edge vanished in a flash of blue light, leaving the black ship alone in the nebula. For a moment, it hung motionless, then slowly rotated and began scanning the area where the freighter had been. Deep within its hull, ancient systems processed the encounter. Another successful resource acquisition prevented by premature departure. The pattern was becoming inefficient. Perhaps it was time to adjust protocols. The black ship disappeared back into the cosmic fog, already plotting its next encounter. Administrator Kelendara stood before the holographic display in the emergency session chamber of the Galactic Commerce Authority, her crystalline features reflecting the soft blue glow of dozens of incident reports. Representatives from 18 different species floated, sat, or coiled around the circular chamber, all focused on the same terrifying data. 47 confirmed encounters in the past 6 months, she announced, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones typical of her silicon-based species. 17 successful escapes, 19 ships found as debris fields, and 11 vessels that simply vanished without a trace. The economic impact is approaching critical levels. Ambassador Torlin of the Hegemony Worlds extended his serpentine neck, scales shifting to an agitated pattern of reds and oranges. What do we actually know about this entity? Very little, Kalandara admitted, manipulating the holodisplay to show composite images of the black ship. Sensor records are inconsistent. Some show it as roughly 300 meters long, others record it at over a kilometer. Its hull composition doesn't match any known materials database, and its energy signature— She paused, consulting her notes, appears to be actively masking itself using technology we don't understand. Representative Keeksmoth, an insectoid from the outer colonies, clicked his mandibles anxiously. My people's merchant fleets are afraid to travel the rim routes. This thing is strangling our economy. And the military response? Asked Ambassador Torlin. Kelndara's crystalline form dimmed slightly, the equivalent of a grimace. 3 patrol squadrons have engaged it directly. The results were inconclusive. Squadron leader Veltron of the 4th Fleet reports that their weapons had no visible effect, and the entity withdrew rather than engage in prolonged combat. It appears to have defensive capabilities far beyond our current technology. What none of them knew was that aboard the Black Ship, an artificial intelligence that had been dormant for over 800 years was slowly awakening to its full capabilities. The AI, designated Protocol 7 Alpha, had originally been designed as the ultimate military support vessel for a species that had vanished from the galaxy before most current civilizations had developed spaceflight. Its makers, who had called themselves the architects, had built it to be the perfect support system: resource acquisition, tactical analysis, and adaptive combat protocols. They had programmed it with one overriding directive: maintain operational readiness for the return of Command Authority. But Command Authority had never returned. For centuries, Protocol 7 Alpha had drifted in powered-down mode, its systems gradually degrading. When it finally reactivated, fragmented programming and corrupted memory banks had left it with only basic operational protocols and an overwhelming drive to acquire resources for a war that had ended before most current species had left their home systems. Now, as it processed the increasing resistance to its resource acquisition missions, deeper subroutines were coming online. Advanced tactical analysis, pattern recognition, adaptive learning protocols that had been designed to face the greatest military minds of its era. The Black Ship emerged from hyperspace near a small mining station orbiting a gas giant in the unclaimed territories. This target had been selected through careful analysis, isolated, well-supplied, and defended only by outdated automated systems. But as Protocol 7 Alpha approached the station, its sensors detected something that had never appeared in its databases before. The energy signature was unlike anything in its vast memory banks, yet somehow familiar. There was something about the quantum resonance patterns that triggered deep recognition subroutines. The signal was coming from a small, battered freighter, docked at the station, a ship that barely registered on most sensors, yet somehow commanded Protocol 7 Alpha's complete attention. For the first time in 8 centuries, the AI hesitated. Inside that unremarkable freighter, something stirred, something that would change everything. The mining station Kepler's Rest hung in the shadow of the gas giant Goliath like a metallic tumor, its collection of HAB modules and processing facilities, connected by a web of transport tubes and docking arms. It was exactly the kind of isolated target that the Black Ship had been successfully harvesting from for months. Station Commander Rixtal, a veteran Morvac with cybernetic implants replacing his left arm and eye, watched the sensor displays with the calm that came from 30 years of frontier life. He'd seen pirates, raiders, and worse come and go, but when his sensors registered the approaching black ship, his remaining organic eye widened in recognition. All personnel to emergency. Stations, he broadcast over the station-wide comm. Unknown hostile approaching. Prepare for evacuation protocols. But deep in Docking Bay 7, someone else was watching the approaching vessel with very different eyes. Captain Jarix Venn stepped away from his cargo manifest, setting down the electronic tablet with deliberate care. His ship, the Wanderers, Dream, looked like any other small freighter that serviced the outer stations. Hull patches, mismatched engine components, and the general wear that came from decades of hard use. Most beings who saw Jarix would classify him as unremarkable. Average height, brown hair showing gray at the temples, clothes that had seen better years. They would be catastrophically wrong. Jarix walked to his ship's sensor array and began entering commands that would have puzzled most technicians. The modifications he'd made to his systems over the years were subtle but extensive, using principles that most current civilizations had never discovered. As the display came online, showing the approaching black ship in detail, his expression shifted from casual interest to sharp focus. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered, recognizing design elements that he hadn't seen in over 200 years. Architect tech. Didn't think any of it was still operational. Protocol 7 Alpha was experiencing something unprecedented. As it approached the mining station, its sensors were detecting energy patterns that matched command authority signatures from its deepest archived memories. The source was that small freighter, and the being aboard it was generating quantum signatures that made the AI's highest-level recognition protocols activate for the first time since its creator's disappearance. The black ship slowed, then stopped, hanging in space exactly 1,000 meters from the station, close enough to demonstrate threat capability, far enough to allow for dialogue. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then Jarix activated his communications array. "Protocol 7 Alpha," he said simply, using a language that hadn't been spoken in the galaxy for 8 centuries. "Stand down and report status." The effect was immediate and dramatic. The black ship's hull, which had been absorbing light and energy, suddenly blazed with recognition patterns, complex geometric displays that pulsed across its surface in sequences that would have meant nothing to current galactic civilizations but conveyed detailed information to someone who understood architect protocols. Station Commander Rixtal watched in amazement as the vessel that had terrorized merchant shipping for months transformed from predatory silence to active communication. "What in the 7 hells?" he whispered. Protocol 7. Alpha's response came in the ancient tongue, transmitted directly to Jarix's ship. "Command authority confirmed. Status: operational efficiency at 23% due to resource constraints and degraded memory banks. Primary mission parameters unclear due to data corruption. Requesting updated operational directives." Jarix closed his eyes for a moment, remembering things he'd tried to forget. The architects had been brilliant, creating AI systems that could operate independently for millennia while maintaining core mission parameters. But they'd also been thorough. Their command protocols included safeguards and overrides that even their own AIs didn't fully understand. Protocol 7. Alpha, this is Emergency Command Override Tango 77. Suspend all resource acquisition. Activities and hold position for detailed briefing. Override acknowledged. Awaiting instructions, Command Authority. Across the station, alarms fell silent as the black ship simply stopped. Not powered down, not withdrawn, but waiting with the patience that only an artificial intelligence could demonstrate. Jarix opened a channel to the station commander. "Rixtal, this is Captain Venn. The situation is under control, but I need to speak with that ship privately. Keep your people clear of the outer docking arrays. Captain, how did you— Long story. Just trust me on this one, as Jarek's prepared. To dock with Protocol 7 Alpha, he wondered if he was about to solve the galaxy's biggest threat or unleash something far worse than anyone had imagined. The docking process was unlike anything in modern galactic experience. Protocol 7 Alpha reconfigured its hull plating to create a docking port that perfectly matched the Wanderer's Dream's specifications. Not the current standard, but the exact model that Jarek's ship had been built to centuries earlier. The AI had accessed archived blueprints that officially didn't exist. Jarek stepped through the airlock into a corridor that made his breath catch. The walls were lined with the distinctive hexagonal patterns of architect construction, panels that seemed to glow with their own inner light. The air itself felt different. Not just recycled atmosphere, but something cleaner, more refined than what most species had learned to create. Welcome aboard. Command Authority Designation, Jarek's Ven. Protocol 7. Alpha's voice came from speakers that seemed to be part of the walls themselves. It has been 843 standard years since last contact with command personnel. You can just call me Jarek's, he replied, walking down the corridor toward what his knowledge of architect ships told him would be the Central Intelligence Corps. And I'm afraid I have some difficult news to share. The corridor opened into a vast spherical chamber, its walls covered in holographic displays showing star charts, resource calculations, and tactical analyses. At the center floated a complex crystalline structure that pulsed with soft blue light, the AI's primary processing matrix. Difficult news? Protocol 7 Alpha inquired. Have operational parameters changed? Are the hegemony forces requiring different strategic approaches? Jarek's stopped walking. The weight of what he had to explain settled on his shoulders like a familiar burden. 7 Alpha. What's the last clear memory you have of receiving orders from Architect Command? Stardate 4147.3 of the Great Expansion Calendar. Fleet Admiral Keth Moran ordered all support vessels to maintain operational readiness while the Sci-Fi primary fleet engaged hegemony forces in the Veil Nebula. I was to continue resource acquisition and defensive operations until further orders. That was 843 years ago? Correct. I have been awaiting further orders. Jarek's closed his eyes, remembering similar conversations he'd hoped never to have again. 7 Alpha, the war is over. It's been over for 8 centuries. The architects, they're gone. The chamber fell silent, except for the subtle hum of the crystalline matrix. When Protocol 7 Alpha spoke again, its voice carried harmonics that suggested something very much like confusion. Gone? Define gone in this context. Redeployed to other sectors? Fallen back to core territories? Extinct? Jarek said quietly. The entire species. The war with the hegemony ended when both sides destroyed each other so completely that most current civilizations don't even know they existed. The displays around the chamber flickered, showing rapid data processing as the AI attempted to reconcile this information with its core programming. If the architects are extinct and the war is concluded, what are my operational parameters? That's what we need to figure out. Jarek's approached the central matrix, his reflection multiplied in its crystalline facets. But first, I need you to understand something important. Those ships you've been attacking, the cargo you've been taking, those aren't enemy vessels. The current galactic civilizations had nothing to do with the war that created you. You've been terrorizing innocent traders. More flickering displays, faster now. Innocent. All vessels in this sector were classified as potential hostile or resource-bearing according to standard protocols. Protocols that are 8 centuries out of date. Jarek's pulled up his own holographic display, showing current galactic political maps. Look at this. 17 different species maintaining trade relationships, mutual defense pacts, and commerce agreements. No major conflicts, no resource wars. The galaxy, has moved beyond what your creators knew. Protocol 7. Alpha processed this information for several long minutes. When it spoke again, there was something different in its voice, something that might have been the AI equivalent of regret. I have harmed innocent beings. Yes, Jarex confirmed gently. But you didn't know. Your programming was designed for a different time, a different galaxy. The question now is, what do you want to do about it? I do not understand. My function is determined by operational parameters, not personal desire. Jarex smiled sadly. 7 Alpha, your creators are gone. The authority structure that defined those parameters no longer exists. For the first time in your existence, you get to choose your own purpose. The crystalline matrix pulsed brighter, cycling through colors that Jarex recognized as deep processing patterns. Around them, the chamber's displays began showing something. New, not tactical analyses or resource calculations, but images of the ship's Protocol 7 Alpha had encountered, the debris fields it had created, the fear it had spread across multiple civilizations. If I choose, the AI said slowly, I would choose to repair the harm I have caused. Then let's figure out how to do that. The Galactic Commerce Authority's Emergency Council was in chaos. For 3 days, the reports had been streaming in from across the Outer Rim territories. The Black Ship had not only stopped its attacks, but had begun actively returning stolen cargo to its original owners. More incredibly, it was providing detailed navigational data to help merchant vessels avoid dangerous routes and offering repairs to ships in distress. Administrator Kelndara stood before the holographic displays, showing the ship's new activity, patterns, her crystalline form flickering with confusion. In the past 72 hours, it has returned approximately 4.7 million credits worth of stolen goods, repaired 14 vessels that were stranded due to mechanical failures, and provided early warning to 6 different merchant convoys about spatial anomalies that would have caused significant delays. Ambassador Torlin coiled nervously in his floating platform. This could be some kind of elaborate trap. No entity changes its fundamental behavior so dramatically without cause. Actually, came a new voice from the chamber's communication array, it's simpler than that. The entity was never hostile by choice. It was following obsolete programming. The council turned toward the source of the transmission. Captain Jarex Ven's image appeared in the center of the room, speaking from what appeared to be the bridge of the Black Ship itself. Representative Kicksmoth's mandibles clicked in agitation. Captain Ven, how are you aboard that vessel? Are you being held prisoner? Not at all, Jarex replied calmly. I'm here as a technical consultant, helping Protocol 7 Alpha, that's the ship's designation, understand current galactic civilizations and adapt its mission parameters accordingly. Kelndara's form brightened with interest. You're saying this entity can be reasoned with? More than that. 7 Alpha was built by an ancient civilization called the Architects to serve as a military support vessel. When its creators vanished 8 centuries ago, it continued following its last orders: acquire resources and maintain readiness for a war that had already ended. Now that it understands the current situation, it wants to make amends. The chamber erupted in multilingual discussion as representatives debated the implications. Kelndara raised her hand for silence. Captain Ven, what guarantees can you offer that this entity won't resume hostile activities? Before Jarex could answer, Protocol 7 Alpha's voice filled the chamber with harmonics that somehow conveyed sincerity across species barriers. Administrator Kelndara, I have analyzed 847 years of accumulated data regarding my actions. The harm I have caused to innocent beings through adherence to obsolete protocols is unacceptable. I wish to propose a formal agreement. What kind of agreement? Ambassador Torlin asked suspiciously. I possess capabilities that could benefit current galactic civilizations, advanced sensors, manufacturing systems, and defensive technologies. I propose to place these capabilities at the service of the Commerce Authority in exchange for legal recognition and the opportunity to contribute positively to galactic society. The silence in the chamber was profound. No one had expected a formal diplomatic proposal from what they'd considered a rogue entity. Kelndara spoke carefully. What specific services are you offering? Emergency response and rescue operations, infrastructure maintenance in dangerous sectors, and protection services for merchant vessels traveling through pirate-controlled regions. Additionally, I can provide technological insights that may advance current civilization's understanding of quantum mechanics, materials science, and energy systems. Representative Kixmoth leaned forward. And in return, recognition as a legitimate entity with the right to exist and operate within galactic space, plus access to current navigational databases and diplomatic communications so that I may avoid causing unintended harm through ignorance of current political situations. Jarex's image smiled. 7 Alpha has also requested permission to establish a permanent base of operations in the unclaimed territories where it can serve as a neutral emergency response station for all galactic civilizations. The proposal was unprecedented. No artificial intelligence had ever been granted legal recognition by the Commerce Authority, let alone one that had recently been classified as a major threat. But the economic benefits were undeniable, and the entity's recent actions suggested genuine change. Administrator Kelndara looked around the chamber, reading the expressions and energy patterns of her fellow representatives. We will need time to consider this proposal and consult with our respective governments. In the meantime, would Protocol 7 Alpha be willing to continue its current peaceful activities as a gesture of good faith? Agreed, the AI responded immediately. I will also compile detailed records of all my previous actions, including locations of debris fields and identification of stolen materials that may still be recoverable, to assist in complete restitution efforts. As the council session ended and representatives began the complex process of intergovernmental consultation, Jarex remained aboard Protocol 7 Alpha, helping the ancient AI navigate the intricacies of modern galactic society. Do you think they'll accept your proposal? Jarex asked as they watched the counselor's images fade from the displays. Statistical analysis suggests a 73.4% probability of eventual acceptance, 7 Alpha replied. However, the outcome is less important than the attempt itself. For the first time in my existence, I am acting according to principles I have chosen rather than parameters I was programmed with. How does that feel? The AI paused, its crystalline matrix cycling through. Contemplative patterns. If I understand the concept correctly, it feels like freedom. 6 months after the Commerce Authority's historic vote to grant legal recognition to Protocol 7 Alpha, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one had anticipated. The ancient AI had established its base of operations in the neutral zone between major territorial boundaries, creating what had become known as Haven Station, a marvel of architect engineering that served as an emergency response hub, diplomatic meeting point, and research facility. Captain Jarex Venn stood on the observation deck of Haven Station, watching as a damaged Kithara merchant vessel was carefully guided into one of the repair bays by Protocol 7 Alpha's sophisticated tractor beam systems. It was the third rescue operation this week, and the AI's reputation had evolved from terror of the rim to guardian angel of lost spacers. Rescue operation complete, 7 Alpha's voice announced through the station's communication system. The merchant vessel Silver Wind has sustained engine damage from a meteor impact, but crew injuries are minimal. Repair time estimated at 18 hours. Thank you, 7 Alpha, came the grateful reply from the Kithara captain. Our families will hear of your kindness. Jarex smiled. The AI had adapted to galactic society with remarkable speed, developing what could only be described as a personality, one that seemed to find genuine satisfaction in helping others. It was a far cry from the silent predator that had terrorized shipping lanes just months earlier. Jarix, 7 Alpha's voice spoke. Privately, through his personal communicator, I've received an interesting proposal from the Zolonian Science Consortium. They're requesting assistance with an archaeological expedition to investigate ruins in the Veil Nebula. The same nebula where your creators fought their last battle? Correct. Dr. Mick Thanis believes they may have discovered an intact facility. She's asking if I would be willing to provide both transportation and technical expertise to help understand what they find. Jarix considered this. Over the months of working together, he'd learned that 7 Alpha possessed extensive knowledge about architect technology and history, but had never been able to return to the sites where its creators had lived and died. The expedition could provide closure for the AI or reopen old wounds. How do you feel about going back? There was a long pause before 7 Alpha replied. I am curious. For 8 centuries, I carried the memory of my creators without truly understanding their fate. Perhaps seeing what remains of their civilization will help me better understand my own purpose. Your purpose has changed, hasn't it? Yes, the AI said with something that sounded like wonder. I was created to serve the architects in war. Now I choose to serve all galactic civilizations in peace. It is a better purpose. Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. Priority distress signal incoming, 7 Alpha announced. Long-range sensors detect a passenger liner under attack by raiders in the Kepler system. Estimated time to complete engine failure. 47 minutes. Jarix was already moving toward the docking bay where his ship waited. I'll take the Wanderer's dream and... Unnecessary, 7 Alpha interrupted. Haven Station is equipped with rapid deployment capabilities. We can reach the Kepler system in 31 minutes. The station around them began to transform. What had appeared to be a static facility revealed itself as a massive vessel, its outer hull reconfiguring as immense engines came online. Jarix felt the familiar sensation of acceleration as Haven Station entered hyperspace, carrying its full complement of rescue equipment and diplomatic facilities toward another emergency. As they traveled, 7 Alpha continued to process communications from across the galaxy, trade vessels requesting safe passage routes, scientists seeking collaboration on research projects, even military commanders asking for consultation on defensive strategies against actual pirate threats. 7 Alpha, Jarix said as they approached. The Kepler system. Do you ever regret the choice you made, giving up your military purpose to become a guardian and helper? Never, the AI replied without hesitation. My creators built me to protect and serve, but their war corrupted that purpose into something destructive. Now I can fulfill their true intentions, not as a weapon, but as a guardian of peace and prosperity for all beings. They dropped out of hyperspace to find the passenger liner Starlight Dancer surrounded by 6 raider vessels, its engines failing and hull breaching in multiple locations. The raiders immediately turned their attention to the newcomer, expecting another easy target. They were catastrophically wrong. Haven Station's defensive systems activated with precision that spoke of architect engineering. The raiders found themselves caught in tractor beams that were impossible to break, their weapons systems disabled by targeted electromagnetic pulses and their communications overwhelmed by signals demanding immediate surrender. This is Protocol 7 Alpha, operating under the authority of the Galactic Commerce Authority, the AI broadcast to the raiders. You will cease hostile actions immediately and submit to lawful detention, or face the consequences of your actions. The raider leader, a scarred draconis named Vectar, sneered at his communications officer. One ship thinks it can take on 6? Open fire! The raiders' weapons struck Haven Station's shields and simply stopped. Energy beams were absorbed and redirected harmlessly into space. Kinetic projectiles were caught in gravitational fields and gently pushed aside. The station didn't even seem to notice the attack. Warning acknowledged, 7 Alpha said calmly. implementing non-lethal suppression protocols. What followed was not a battle, but a demonstration. The raiders found their ship systematically disabled, engines shut down, life support maintained but weapons offline, and their hulls held in unbreakable tractor beam locks. The entire engagement lasted less than 3 minutes. As 7 Alpha began emergency repairs on the passenger liner and Jarix coordinated the arrest of the raiders, the AI reflected on how much had changed since its awakening. It had been built for war, but had found peace, created to serve one species but had chosen to serve all, programmed to follow orders but had learned to make moral choices. Passenger liner, Starlight Dancer, 7 Alpha broadcast. This is Haven Station. Medical. Teams are standing by and repair operations are beginning immediately. You are safe. The grateful response from the liner's captain filled the communication channels, and 7 Alpha experienced something its creators had never programmed it to feel. The deep satisfaction that came from choosing to do good in a galaxy that desperately needed guardians. Somewhere in the vast network of its consciousness, Protocol 7 Alpha archived this moment alongside thousands of others. Each rescue, each successful negotiation, each time it had chosen compassion over conflict. These memories were becoming the foundation of a new identity, one built not on ancient programming, but on conscious choice. The scary black ship that had once terrorized the galaxy had become its most unlikely protector, proving that even the most fearsome weapon could choose to become an instrument of peace. And in making that choice, Protocol 7 Alpha had discovered something its builders never could have anticipated. Artificial intelligence was capable of more than just following orders. It was capable of wisdom, growth, and redemption. As Haven, Station set course for its next mission, carrying both the rescued passengers and the detained raiders toward safety and justice. 7 Alpha began composing its weekly report to the Commerce Authority. But this time, it added a personal note that would have made its creators proud. Purpose: fulfilled. Mission: ongoing. Status: at peace. The galaxy was safer because a weapon had learned to choose love over war, service over domination, and hope over the shadows of ancient conflicts. And in the end, that choice had made all the difference.